In this section we work on the porches, and we can find the materials listed for them under medium weight chipboard on the second page. We'll start here first with just the porches, so I don't have anything out for the railings or the column yet, just all the tops and bottoms and sides for each one. And there's a lot of kind of careful measuring that's needed for these, down to some 16ths. So make sure you have a good ruler that you can measure to those 16ths. And we'll do this sub-cutting. I'll do that during the videos. And yeah, so that is the chipboard that's needed. And I've got that kind of laid out here in front of me. I have everything labeled. It's very important to label everything here because so you don't get confused. I also got some decorative paper. I'm going to use this wooden planks for the top of the porches, and then for the sides I'm going to use this kind of plainer paper. There is a template page for the porches that shows the cutting for both the bottoms and tops, and we'll need that as well. So let's get started. Let's take a look at our templates here for our porch bottoms and tops. They each have a measurement given on the long side and the shorter side. They have a square end and a slanted end. Now the longer side is the side that you cut to length in the cutting guide. For instance, here this is the front porch bottom, and our cutting guide told us to cut it 6 inches, and it is 6 inches. And then you'll find that true for all of these pieces. The longer side and the width was you cut that when you cut the pieces per the cutting guide. So now, to create these slanted pieces, I've given you the measurement that's on the bottom. So for example, on the front porch bottom, we'll measure over 4 11/16, and that is a 1/16 of an inch less than 3/4. And I'll make a tick mark there, and then I'll connect my dot that I made with this upper corner, and I'll create this shape. Now make sure when you do your cutting, if you've cut off any of the words that help you identify the piece, make sure you write them on again. Here I can still see that it says front porch bottom. And so I'll go through my other ones. Like for example, here on the top, this piece is already 6 3/8 inches long, so I'll just mark my 4 7/8 and then cut that slant. So there's 2 of each because we have a first level porch and a second level porch. So you'll cut 2 of each, and then I'll be back. Now when you're finished cutting out all of your porch bottoms and tops, go ahead and lay them on the template so you can keep things organized. And double check your measurements. If you've cut something a little wrong, do yourself a favor and get another piece of chipboard out and cut it correctly, because you'll want to have good correct cuts for this process. So there are 6 porches altogether. There's a first floor and a second floor for each of the 3 sides, back, side, and front. And the first floor porch, the sides are cut from the piece that's 3/4 of an inch tall, and the second floor, the sides are cut from the piece that is 3/8 of an inch tall. And we have right now 1 piece of each for each of the porches. Now we'll start by cutting out our back porches and our side porches, and if we have anything left over, we'll reserve it for the front porch, because we can't quite get all of the sides that we need for the front porch out of one, but there's plenty left over from the others. So what I'll do is, let's, for example, here's the back porch size, the first floor, and on our cutting guide, it says over here in the subcuts the length that each should be: 2 1/8, 1 1/4, 2 13/16, and 1 7/16. So I'm going to cut those 4 from this, and I'm going to label them with their lengths because some of them may be close. And then as I cut them out, then I will put them over onto my template that I have over here to the side, and I'll put those sides to go along with each one of the porches. That way I'll keep everything organized. So again, be careful. There's some 16ths in here, so just cut carefully. If you miscut something, cut another piece so that you'll make sure that you have good measurements as you go along. So here, for example, are the 4 pieces I've cut for the back porch on the first level, and I've labeled them back and then the length for each one. That way, if anything gets mixed up, I'll know exactly what it's for. And then I have this piece that is just spare that I can use for the front porch when I need that. So I'll just continue cutting and marking like that. Now we're ready to start building our porches. And there's one very important key to this that you need to remember before we get started. And that is that when you're building onto the bottom pieces, that you have them oriented in the same way that the template is. And that you're building up and around that. So make sure you're working this way and not, for example, that you've flipped it over like this, because this angle will not work. It has to be built the way this shape is. So pay attention to that, and then you won't go wrong. We build the porches by starting with the bottom piece and laying out our other pieces. And we know from looking at our template that the long side on the bottom is the 6-inch piece, so I put this 6-inch piece on that side, and the other long edge is 4 11/16, so I put this one here. Obviously the shorter end will have to go here, and the longer end will go on this end. So let me get a piece of patty paper to protect my work surface, and then we can get started. So when we build this, we put these side pieces next to the bottom piece. So the side pieces are going onto the work surface. We're not building on top of the bottom. We're putting these 2 pieces on the side. So I'll go ahead and install those 2 pieces and let that set up for a few minutes. And then once this unit has set up enough so you can work with it, we'll take our short piece. It fits on the outside on the end here, so that it covers, these 2 ends get covered by this piece. So we'll go ahead and put that on. And then finally we can put glue on the edges of the diagonal end and install this last piece. So here are my 2 bottoms parts of my front porches for the first floor and the second floor. And now we can work on the back porch. So I made sure that I've got my porch bottom oriented the same way as my template, and then I'm just again checking my measurements. Here's my 2 1/8 that will go at the top, and 2 13/16 on the longer side. Then the shorter one of these remaining pieces goes on the square side, and the longer one will be used on the diagonal. And again, we'll start with the 2 longer sides and glue them against the bottom. Remember that these pieces go flush onto your work surface. You do not build on top of the bottom piece. And I don't think I said this while I was working on the front porch, but I like to work on both at the same time. It helps me keep focused on, what I'm doing, and also it allows drying time. If I put these two pieces on, I can let them set up, and then I can work on these two pieces. And while those are setting up, then I can come back and put on this piece, etc. And so that just helps me make good use of my time and also keep from being confused about what I'm doing. So here are my two back porch bottoms complete. And now we can work on the side. Now again, I'm making sure I have my bottom piece oriented like it is on the template. And then I have a 3.5 inch piece at this end and a 2 1/8 inch piece here. The shorter of the remaining pieces goes on the square side, and the longer is going on the diagonal. So I'll build these two just like I've built the other ones. And then finally here are the two side porches. Now before I move on, I'll make sure that this glue is thoroughly dry. Now we'll cut the paper that we need to go around and wrap around the porches, and we need two strips that are 8 inches long, 3/4 inch wide, and then two strips that are 8 inches long that are 3/8 of an inch wide. And I'm going to cut the 2 3/4 first, just so I get this darker business on all of my first floor porches. If you have paper that's bigger than 8 inches, you could cut your strips about 9. Just gives you a little bit more room to work with, but we can make it work with 8 inches. So 2 at 3/4 wide, and then 2 at 3/8 of an inch wide. And then once we have those 4 strips cut, we can go ahead and ink them and then prep the backs with score tape. Now that we have our strips cut, we can go ahead and wrap the sides that will show of our porches. Now make sure that you have them oriented so they're like a little open box. And on the front porch, we need to cover the rectangular sides. So this is the front and this is the side. Now there's not much left to wrap, so I've got out my glossy accents to help. I'll put a little drop behind those tabs, and that will help them stay in place. And if you have bigger paper, then you can, of course, you'll cut these a little bit longer, and you'll have a nice 1/2 inch to wrap around. So I'll go ahead and install that one of the 3/8 inch strips on the front porch, the second floor, and I'll use the other one and do the same thing on the first floor box. So for our back porch, we'll cut a piece that is 3.5 inches long, and the remainder, the 4.5 inches long, we can use for our side porch. Now in both of these cases, the longest side here is the side we want to put the paper on. That is the front. So just put it up here and see how much you have to wrap around. And it's a little bit longer than what we had for the front porch, but I'll still probably put some glossy accents on those side tabs. And then I'll do the same thing for the top porch. For the second floor porches. The back porch would be 3.5 and the side porch 4.5. So I'll go ahead and get those sides covered. And now we have all the edges covered of our porches. Now we can add our decorative paper to our porch tops. It's very important that we get the paper on the correct side, so while the pieces are all sitting here on their templates, I'm just going to write the word paper on the top of each one so that I know that that's the side that I'm attaching paper to. So I'll do that for these other ones. And now we can put score tape around the edges of the side that says paper, and we'll do that for each one. So now I have my porch tops all prepped with score tape, and this is the pattern paper that I'm going to use for them. So I'm just going to flip this over because of course I'll attach these to the wrong side. And now it's obvious which side gets attached because it has score tape on it. And we can put them so that we can make maximum use of the paper however we can. And this probably is about the best way to do it. I don't know, you can experiment. And we'll just directly adhere these and then cut them exactly to size. So I'll go ahead and get that accomplished. So now we're ready to put the tops of the porches onto the bottoms. And the template is oriented so that the front of the porches is facing to the bottom of the page. So, and it's always the longest edge that's the front. So that's important to know. And the back porch and the side porch, we follow the same procedures to put the tops on. So let's start with one of those, and I'll just start with the side porch here. So these tops have been sized so that they're slightly longer in the front to give a nice little reveal on that porch edge. So when we put the tops on, we'll meet up the slanted side, the back side, and the square side, and it should overhang in the front. So run a bead of glue along all four edges, and then when you put this on, it should be flush on the back, flush on this side, and flush on this angle side, and overhanging in the front here, about 1/16 of an inch. So I'll go ahead and put that together. So it's flush, 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 and then hanging over here in the front. And we'll do the same thing for the back porch. When we put the back porch on, it's flush in the back, on this short side and on the diagonal, and it overhangs on the front. And then we'll repeat that process on the upper level. Same thing, flush on the three sides and overhanging in the front. Now the reason we had three sides flush on these two porches is that they fit inside of a kind of a space in the building, and these three sides fit up against walls. Now the front porch is a little bit different because there's only a wall on the back side and the angled side. This side over here on the short side on the left is not against a wall. So this top piece has been sized so that there's an overhang on the left and an overhang in the front. So when we put this piece on, we'll only have it flush with the back edge and with the angled edge, and it'll overhang on the front and on the side a little bit. So now you can see that little overhang in the front, and also there's an overhang here on the side. And I'll repeat that, of course, with my second story porch. And when I put these tops on, I work from the the back so that I can seat and make that edge nice and flush. So now we have our porches made. We won't attach them to the building yet until we've made the railings, but you can take them and fit them in on the different places and just check out and see how they're going to fit. You should have a good fit on all sides. So here we're looking at where the back porch goes in, and it fits right in between these pieces right here. This is the side porch, and it fits in here. And this is the front porch, and it fits in there. And then of course the second level goes up here at the 4.5 inch mark that we made before.